What a reversal day that we had. If you looked at yesterday, late afternoon into the evening, you were thinking, okay, it was going to be a deep, deep red day. And even in the morning, it was looking like that. I mean, oil futures hitting about 119 a barrel at the top. And then all of a sudden a reversal came. And not just a little 5% correction, 10%. What about more than 30% correction here? We want to talk all about this. It's a truly fascinating day. Let's bring in our next guest to help break it all down. Denton Cinquegrana, great to have you on with Oil Price Information Service. And we were talking at the break, what a fascinating day this has been.
Yeah, it really has, Mike. And like you described, that's exactly what it was. You know, you see when the market opens last night, you're like, all right, $100, here we are. Then it just keeps going, gets up to almost $120 for both WTI and Brent. You know, you get back to the desk in the morning, you're still over $100, you know, 105, 106. And then the floor just dropped this afternoon. Now, for WTI, we're back in the 80s now, high 80s. I don't think we're out of the woods just yet, but man, what a day.
And tell our viewers, okay, what started that initial drop down with the prices coming down? What news was dictating this?
Yeah, I think it really kind of coincided with the stock market, you know, kind of making its rally here late in the afternoon when the president said it looks like this is just about over. So again, we're not out of the woods yet. We have to still wait and see if this truly is over. But again, if we're making our move and we can see light at the end of the tunnel, then yeah, maybe we are, you know, kind of in for a period here of at least stable prices, not this skyrocket higher. And we may not have a significant drop lower. We might stick here in the 80s for a little bit of time here.
Yeah, I mean, to see just what we were looking at on Saturday evening with the images coming out of Iran, Israel going after their oil fields, and you were thinking, okay, yeah, this 115, 120, very feasible, maybe even 150, and then we are seeing this huge pullback.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. And, you know, you make a great point of the visuals we've seen so far. We've also seen some countries in the Middle East have to pull back on production because, as we talked about recently, if ships can't go through the Strait of Hormuz, then you don't have ships to fill, taking oil from the terminals, et cetera. So storage fills up and it all backs into the system. And then you're going to have to see some production shut in, and which we have. The question we have is, as those fields need to come back, you know, you wonder, and again, I'm not an engineer, but could some of those wells have been damaged in the hasty shutdown? Because, hey, we have to shut these down quick. Could there have been some damage? Did we lose, you know, 5% off of a certain field, for example? That's something we'll know over the next several weeks if this is indeed over.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Coming up here in moments, we are going to be taking President Trump remarks. What do you think the market is going to be really looking at? What does he need to say to even help bring those prices even lower?
Yeah, I think some things that can be done, particularly for retail gasoline prices. So there's been some talk of a relief of the Jones Act. So if you're not familiar with the Jones Act is a piece of maritime law that says any ship going from one port in the United States to another port in the United States. So let's say from Houston to Port Canaveral on the west coast of Florida. Or actually South Florida. Sorry about that. I'm getting all my geography mixed up here. But that ship has to be built in the United States, manned by a U.S. crew, and flagged in the United States. Those shipping rates tend to be more expensive than an internationally flagged shipping vessel. So if they waive the Jones Act, you would have just more competitive shipping rates. That would help bring down prices. Some other things that they could do is a gas tax holiday. You may remember in 2022, several states did that as prices were skyrocketing after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the third thing is the EPA can relax gasoline standards going into the summer. The formulation for gasoline changes. It becomes a little bit harder and a little bit more expensive to make. If we keep winter grade specifications longer, you could take some components that go into making gasoline that are actually cheaper and use them at a higher percentage, which would bring the overall blend down.
And Denton, lastly here, I want to talk about a little bit more gas prices on the consumer level. So many people always have questions about that. Right now, as we speak, we are lower right now than we were on Friday's crude oil prices. But we saw 50 to 60 cent spikes in gasoline prices, and we're not seeing that adjustment happening right now when it was lower on Friday. Why is it so high? Why is it so fast to skyrocket gas prices, but takes so long to come on back down to reality?
Yeah, it's the whole rocket and feather theory, right? So when you consider what a retail station has to do, and they see, they have some gasoline inventory, they see prices going up. Their replacement costs are obviously going to go up, so they're trying to keep up with their replacement costs. And so as those replacements come down, they restore some of their margin in selling retail gasoline, and then things sort of even out. So it's kind of a quick down and dirty on how that kind of rocket and feather with retail gasoline prices do work. Now, right now the average is right around $3.50. If we stick here for a little while, we could start to plateau, maybe a few pennies higher than where we are nationally. But again, if everything stops and just kind of reverses a little bit, then yeah, I think maybe the worst is over. But if we're not out of the woods yet, I thought earlier today $4 could be in the cards by the end of the week nationally. If we kind of continue back on the trend we were on last night and earlier this morning, yeah, that's still a possibility by the end of the week. But a lot to be disturbed. It's changing by the minute, for crying out loud. So
it really is. I always say, if you don't like the price now, just wait a little bit. It might change.
It's kind of like the
better
weather.
Or worse.
It's kind of like the weather.
Absolutely. Denton, great to have you on. Always great analysis. We appreciate it right here on Live Now.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Take care.